Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Mouse Minds. We are here for you live on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, all over the place. And we are coming at you this week. I have my lovely co host with me this week. I have Luella and Michael.
Hello.
Only one of us is lovely. It's not me.
That is
Not
true.
me.
And it's not me either. Or maybe it is. I don't know. All right, we're moving on from whatever that was. Thank you guys for joining us this week on our show here. We have an interesting topic to discuss here this week. We're going to be getting opinions from both coasts here with this one. But I thought this week we would go into cues. I think one of the things that a lot of people overlook nowadays is how advanced the queues have gotten for attractions. We have queues now that essentially transport you into other worlds while you're in line for an attraction. And I think we got to talk about that because there's some we've come a long way from waiting in line in Frontierland for Peter Pan and just a mildly themed queue to something that is sometimes interactive, very immersive, and adds that extra bit of storytelling to those attractions that we all love and treasure so much when it comes to Disney. So let's talk about that first. So, who wants to go first here? I mean, there's some obvious. I mean, my head is buzzing with lots of answers here. So, who wants to go first?
I'll go first. So, in Disneyland, this park opened up in 1955. So there wasn't, back when it first started, queues weren't as elaborate. But as the park started to grow and they started to expand the park, the newer rides, attractions had more interactive queues. And my distinct memory of probably one of the best queues from what I remember was the Indiana Jones ride. And that queue also had to be made interactive and long because if you don't know, if you haven't been to the West Coast and been on Indiana Jones, it's located, that area is not big. Disneyland. So it is actually underneath what was once the ER parking lot. And so you needed to have a queue that would take you all the way to where that ER parking lot was once located at Disneyland. So that's another reason why that queue is long. But it has since some of the interactive queues have been removed, I think, because this ride is already over 30 years old, but it's still a tip top ride. But it was one of the first queues where you were given initially it was sponsored by AT&T, and so you were given a card with all these different hieroglyphics to try to decipher all the codes on the walls, and this helps you pass the time away as well as trying to find these cues and meanings. Now they don't pass out this card anymore, but you can find it online and you can still try to decipher what the messages were. And that was one of the things that it did. Another fun thing is they had these booby traps that you could touch and the walls would fall down, or there's the rope there with the guy climbing still there. You can pull that rope and the guy will scream. So it's still a very interactive queue, and it's one of my favorites. And before you knew it, you're already there at the ride. So I think that's another thing that these queues do is they help pass the time away. Yes, there you go. They help pass the time away, and it's fun to do. So I would have to say that's that's an attraction itself, the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland queue.
Now, will guests who might not have been on it before will they know about the hieroglyphics and cracking codes? Is it something that's
That's a
still
good point.
visible, or is
I
it
think there's
just
remnants,
if you
right?
know it's there, you see it?
The codes are still there, but there's no mention. There's no mention of it. So,
Okay,
yeah.
those
So
are
if you would go on it, you'd see all the writings on the walls, but unless you knew, unless I told you, and unless you pull it up on your phone, you wouldn't know to translate it, to decipher it.
got it. Okay, well
That's
at least it's
amazing.
there. It's nothing that they
Yeah, at least it's
removed.
still
You
there.
wanted to
I was gonna say.
downplay it, fine, but they didn't get rid of it.
No, and then sometimes when they have their anniversaries, like I think it was like the 30th or the 25th anniversary I went there, they did a special day where they gave away that card to
Oh,
some
that's
guests.
nice.
So, but before when it first opened, that was a really great souvenir. You would get it, and they did it for a couple years. So yeah,
That's
that's a great attraction, and that's a
I,
great
I've
queue.
I've seen that before. I remember because I remember seeing the hieroglyphics inside the queue, and I
Yeah.
remember seeing that before and wondering what that was and looking it up and then finding the card. So I have seen that before in the attraction the few times that I've been on that attraction. But that is really cool. I never heard the whole story behind that, and that's kind of the uh, precursor for inactive queues. Now, speaking of, you were speaking of um, underground queues and interesting queues. Um, One of the ones we have to talk about at Disneyland, and this is no longer there, but to me, but I've seen a lot of videos on this recently. Actually, if you follow Jim Shul on YouTube, he did a video about this because he actually helped work on this. I'm not sure entirely in what capacity, but he did help with this. But the underground queue for rocket rods when they built that many moons
Oh.
ago, which actually goes underneath like the sidewalk there, which if you haven't looked that up yet, it's actually pretty amazing because not only did it go underground, but the queue itself, where it ran into the Circle Vision Theater, and they had the movie playing while you went through the queue. That was actually quite interesting, especially for such an intricate queue for an attraction that really didn't last that long. But it looks so amazing. You have to look it up. Like just see the clips. For the time that it was put in, that was pretty. I'm sure it was pretty groundbreaking at the time.
Yeah, I
Uh,
like I said, there's not a lot of room there, so they have to be
Yeah,
creative on where they're going to put a line.
yeah. They were definitely very creative with that one. That was like I said, you have to look it up. The queue, obviously, Rocket Rods is no longer there. Um, there are remnants. The queue is still there. Like the underground portion is still there. They've rearranged parts of that so that it doesn't queue through there anymore. I forget what's in there now, but there's like an exit where the queue used to exit at, and there's I believe it's a gift shop now. I don't remember. But yeah, it's that for the time that they put that in, that was that was pretty amazing. That whole Tomorrowland refurb that they did at that time was pretty epic. I always I love the Tomorrowland that we have here in Orlando, but I do think it's time for an upgrade. And that I like what they were. I know we kind of got some of
oh,
Oh,
and there he goes.
yeah.
for that in the future.
And there he is.
Oh, did I cut out? I'm sorry.
You
You
did. He
yeah.
disappeared on us. It's okay.
All right, Michael, do you have any?
Sure. One of my favorites. I don't do roller coasters. I don't do drops. I don't do any of that nonsense. I'm there
Mhm.
for the fun. But for the first time, I was visiting Walt Disney World. A buddy of mine who flew down from back home, and he was going to go on to Hollywood Tower of Terror. And I said, you know what? Let me just walk through the queue with him. Pretty cool. I had started getting into, because I had never watched Twilight Zone growing up, but then as I started watching it later as an adult, and then having an opportunity to go through the queue, took the chicken exit, they put you in the real elevator and get you the heck out of there, and you go back upstairs, and I'll meet you at the end of the
Yep.
line. But I was happy that I went through there to see the pre-show, to see all the little details that they bid in, the replicas from the show itself. It's pretty cool. So yeah, that one was fun to check out.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely one of the most memorable cues. I mean, how can you not forget hearing that and
Mhm.
hearing and seeing that pre-show? Which I will say, as far as the when they did the retheme in at California Adventure and changed it to Guardians, I will say they did a really, really good job of keeping that cue amazing. They did oh my gosh, what is it? It's the Rocket animatronic
Oh
in
yeah,
that
that's a very good
pre-show
cue.
is fantastic, fantastic. And for the time, the movements that it has, I mean, they still are pretty amazing. So that cue is definitely up there.
Yeah, and then the way Mark Silverman is able to replicate Rod Serling's voice.
Hmm.
It's you don't realize that you're watching the actual video, but they were able to get the voice in sync with some of the mouth movements.
Yeah.
It's they did a really great job with that one. So I'll throw that one in as my first.
No, I that wasn't even on my radar, and I'm a little upset with myself that I missed that one because I mean, it's the Hollywood Hotel. I mean, I mean, how do you not, they do tours of that, that queue, that lobby. So that is a huge one. But I think, it's there's so many amazing queues at the parks. I think one that will always stick out to me right now is definitely Rise of the Resistance.
Hmm.
Even when you're doing the even if you're doing like the single rider line, when you see that, when you're staring out into space and you see the stormtroopers there, um, and it's incredible. Um, seeing the stormtroopers there, and then looking out into space and having the people scream at you and tell you to move and everything else. Throw it on the screen here. I mean, it's super interactive. It's I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, at least for me. I mean, I remember when they put this in, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like I'm in it. Like this is it. Like I honestly, I like. I mean, in some respects, I like the queue. I think a little bit better than I actually enjoy the ride itself. So if that could be a thing.
It's a
And I
beautiful cue. It's a beautiful cue.
exactly. And I think the same while we're talking about Star Wars, I think the same applies to Smuggler's Run. Being inside the Millennium Falcon is another one that that's these are things like for someone my age who grew up watching Star Wars to be on the Millennium Falcon is
Yes.
like my inner child is screaming at the top of its lung like, "Oh my god, this is so awesome!" So, I mean,
And even though that
I
ride
will say,
I say, even though the ride at this point is fairly lame and it definitely needs a refresher, even the
yeah,
walk up to the Falcon itself, I
hmm
enjoyed that part of the queue when you're walking through the
hmm
shop and you hear all the announcements and you hear the guys talking to each
hmm
other, and making fun of Hondo. Um,
hmm
I like that walk up better than I like the walk through to the briefing room with Ray on Rise of the Resistance.
hmm
Going past the weapons and the some of the rooms are just stone, and then you got the outfits and the spacesuits. That part to me is boring. But once you get up to the briefing room and you got BB-8 rolling around pointlessly, and then Ray comes up, and then you go outside and the reveal of the transport, and then you get on
yep,
that part's awesome. But it's that 45-minute to an hour when it's bad wait
Yeah.
and standing there and just hoping that this next turn is going to be the turn. And those
Yeah.
half benches that people are fighting to get on, oh, it's painful. The rest of the ride is cute. So that's why I enjoy the Rise of the Smuggler's Run, because you're doing
Yeah.
more walking. You're going up and down ramps and stairs, and you're passing, and you're
It's
getting different
interesting.
perspectives of the same stuff you
Yeah.
saw on the ground. And you can, oh, look, it's a speeder bike helmet. You know,
Yeah.
all the little Easter eggs that they buried. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. So that's a good pick.
And I will say too, as much as Smuggler's Run is not a Rise of the Resistance in terms of the ride, you know, because with of course with Rise you're going through all these different scenes, and of course Smuggler's Run is just, you know, more of a screen based attraction. The technology and the way, if you ever look up the layout for how Smuggler's Run actually works, it's pretty intricate and incredible the way they're able to have the vehicles shift and move and line up with the where you get in and out and everything. It's actually really just look up the blueprints for Smuggler's Run and how it works. You'll be impressed. It's actually a pretty amazing feat. And you know, one of the things you know that Disney's really good at too is blending the technology and also fitting in that capacity, getting people through the ride faster, making the lines move faster, getting more people into the rides per hour, that capacity per hour there, and that is for me is a great example of that, especially the way they design that. But you're right, but Smuggler's Run, anything really anything in Star Wars is going to be in an amazing queue. Even Star Tours itself, which is outside of you know Batu, is going to be it is amazing. I mean that sets the tone right there too. Walking through and seeing the star speeders and everything else and all that stuff. It's amazing.
Yes. How about
And
you?
I think we
What's your so you said Rise of the Resistance and Smuggler's
Smugglers
Run. Yeah.
my favorite. Um, there's so many to talk about, and there's been so many great cues throughout the years too. Um, you know that have been um, like for example, Space Mountain. I think at least here on the East Coast used to have a much better queue than what it does now, but it did in the past have a pretty amazing queue. That was
Yeah, our Space Mountain doesn't have a very good queue, but I will say our Mickey's Runaway Railway over here in this coast has an amazing queue. It
it does have
is one of my favorite queues, is especially if you watch those Mickey shorts.
yeah. Yours has because ours is more of well ours basically took over well, I shouldn't say basically it did take over the old great movie ride. So ours is more of like a Chinese theater type queue inside, but yours has like statues and all kinds of just fun stuff
Yeah,
inside. So this
I
on the
think
screen.
the difference is it's what you said. It took over a previous ride,
Mhm.
whereas here in the West Coast they built it. They
Yep.
specifically built this queue because there was no ride there. So
Yep.
that's the luxury that they had. They could start
Yeah.
from scratch and make a line because that's a very long line. The Mickey's
Yeah.
Runaway, it's one of the longer ones, similar to Rise of the Resistance. So
Hmm.
to pass the time with all these Easter egg nuggets from all the
Hmm.
Mickey shorts that you've watched in the past, not just the Mickey shorts, but like Disco Mickey Mouse and all like the ones from the night, early on.
Hmm.
It's so nostalgic that
Yeah.
I love it.
How much of yours is outside? Is there a large outside portion?
There is an outside portion. when it gets really bad.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the outside portion is just a bunch of switchbacks, so it doesn't get to that point. Not, I've never had to be on that outside. The inside is quite extensive. So if you see a line outside, it's a long line.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it because it's really long inside. So
Yeah. The outside portion is one of my least favorite parts of that attraction there. When it gets that bad, but even getting inside, like you said, the excitement doesn't start until you get all the way up front to the briefing room there with Goofy and the actual pre-show. But that line is dreadful. And what's worse is that because there's nothing to do for adults, it's even worse for little kids. And they'll just start acting up and they start crying and they start bouncing into you. It's like, you're not my kid, get off me. But
and they
there's nothing, there's no interaction at all. It's just
Yeah.
parents disciplining bratty kids.
oh in the East Coast one,
Yeah,
in the Hollywood
outside.
yeah.
Yep.
You're 100% right there. There's not a lot to keep people entertained, at least on this coast.
Mhm.
That queue itself. That is. I mean, there's cool like statues in there, and well, I say statues, but they have like cool movie posters. Like there's the interactive movie posters, which I think is cool. They have like the animated movie posters, but it's nothing compared to what you guys have out in California. And I don't think I don't think your actual ride is that much different. It's just the queue is honestly so much better. But then again, too, the area also plays a part into that as well because that's in Toontown, whereas ours is in the Chinese theater. So they can have
Yes.
more of that animated stuff because it fits into the area that it's sitting in. So I think they
And I'm
can.
surprised. I know they saved a ton of money, but the East Coast has zero connection to the Chinese theater. They don't know who Grauman is. They don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's true.
You could have they save money by keeping the existing building. They save money by keeping the existing queue, and bless them for it, because I don't know where that money went. But you
I
could have
think
just
they
ripped
did
it out
that
and started
too.
over. If they had built
Well,
California first, they could have just followed that pattern.
well, yeah, but the thing you have to realize too is that when that attraction switched over to um, what it is now to Runaway Railway, people were very upset with the change. They didn't want it to change. They always want everyone, of course, as soon as something starts to close, everyone becomes a fan of it. Which actually I take that back because now that they're changing over um, Rock and Roller Coaster to Muppets, I'm not really necessarily seeing the same level of like people saying, "Oh my gosh, this is the best attraction ever" that I usually do. So I guess it doesn't happen for every attraction, but for Movie Ride being in the middle of the park, being one of those attractions that like maybe one of the first attractions that you went on because once you got to the end of Hollywood Boulevard, it was right there. So I think people were more attached with that, and I think that's why they kept that queue the way it was and did it because they weren't about to tear down one of the most iconic scenes in the whole park, just to put in Runaway Railway. I don't think it was ever going to happen because the fans would just revolt, um, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of doing the same, and it saves money too. And they're kind of doing the same thing with, or they are doing the same thing basically with the Muppets ride with the concept art that they've released for that. I mean, they're using the same scene as you enter into the ride where you go into the recording studio, except instead of Aerosmith, it's now Muppets. So at least that's what the concept art that they've shown. That's what it's going to look like. So they're going to do the same thing again with this, which obviously saves them money because then they don't have to design a whole new queue. But I'm curious, especially with that one, what they're going to do for the actual ride itself.
Yeah, I wonder if they're actually going to tear out any of the track, or do you just leave the existing and retheme it? Now it becomes an Incredicoaster, where it's the same old ride. We just put in some new theming and hope folks don't notice.
Yeah, I really don't know what's going to happen with that one. I personally don't think they're gonna pull any or change any track inside the new ride because they who made that one? Was it Intamin? I think it was Intamin who did the track for that one because that coaster is actually a model. There's other parks that have that same exact coaster
Same
track
layout.
layout and same exact
Yeah.
coaster outside.
What's wrong with my
So
camera? Um,
um
but
yeah,
yeah,
I'm trying to
you're right
remember.
because now the less you have to do with the inside, the faster you can get this ride back open.
Yeah, and it's I mean, of course, the other thing is too everything is structurally sound. Vacoma. Wow, how could I not remember that? Please don't take away my Ace card. Or my yeah, American Coaster Enthusiast card. Um, but Vacoma. So yeah, and plus it's structurally sound. Everything is in there. Everything has been working fine for years. They may reinforce everything, and because it's been there for so long, and possibly like repaint the track and things like that. But they're not going to make major like structural changes, especially now they've got everything fit into that sound stage and so on and so forth. So I don't see them making huge changes to the track itself. But that's another one. Rock and Roller Coaster is another one that has a great queue. Once you get inside, obviously the
Hmm.
outside portion, I will agree, is a big bulk of the queue for that attraction. But once you get inside and you're in G-Force Records, which again, awesome name, G-Force Records. You're on a coaster. But once you get in there, that is an amazing track, and how iconic is that scene where Aerosmith comes in and they tell you to make it a super stretch. So amazing attraction.
How about one more from the West Coast? What else is cool out there for folks
Yeah,
to look
I
forward
think
to
so
seeing?
too.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we don't really have these elaborate queues. There's just not a lot of room. But I've told you my two favorite ones. So, but I don't necessarily know if everyone has ever done the Play Disney. So the Play
Yeah.
Disney app, and the reason why I bring this up, some of the queues have interactive games with the Play Disney, and there is a very fun because it's a terrible line. I mean, there's nothing because it's just a bunch of switchbacks, but the Peter Pan ride has a nice game on the Play Disney, and there's something satisfying if you get to the end and you finish that game. And I'll just keep it as that because I don't want to spoil it.
Hmm.
So, and you can only see it if you play the game. And so that kind of the queue itself is not anything if you're just going to stand in line, but if you play the interactive game and have fun playing it, when you reach the end, there's a nice surprise. So.
And it's the same thing every time you ride. It's the same basic game.
It's the same game,
Okay,
but
I wasn't sure if they changed it up at all, but
no, because um,
and we have a
but you
and we
can't
have it and we have
you
it
can't
out here
see
too.
it unless you play that game. Like you
got it.
can't see
Yeah,
that surprise.
and we have the the Disney Play app works out here too for Peter Pan's flight. Um, I don't remember if your queue is not as immersive as ours. Yours is just the
No,
ours
it's
actually has
very boring. It's a bunch of switchbacks.
yeah. So ours actually has the bedroom, the Darling family's nursery. And you of course see Tinkerbell flying through there, but the Disney Play app does interact with that. I don't remember what
Okay.
exactly it does, but it does interact with that scene, which that was something that because we ours was a bunch of switchbacks too, pretty much for the longest time there, and then they like basically took that last section and added in that whole scene, and it made a world of difference because that obviously Peter Pan's flight is one of the most ridden attractions at Magic Kingdom. Just people love it. It always has a long wait. So having
Yeah.
that little bit there made a big difference as far as waiting for that ride. But that
Yeah.
is another one that is incredible. I still remember the first time I saw Tinkerbell. Like you saw the light of her flying around the room there, and that was pretty amazing.
And I'm surprised they bothered incorporating that Play Disney app into that one because they made the queue itself interactive. With the
Yeah.
motion and you wave and you can have things happen and you can move Tinkerbell and things light up. So I was surprised that they would double dip on the interactivity.
Well, they've been trying with the Play app for a while. I don't know how many daily active users they have for the Disney Play app. Um, um, Let me see if I can find out. Um,
I mean, I've tried using it for Rise of the Resistance, and at some point, I just can't be bothered. I don't care about the
yeah.
translation. I don't care about the little cute
I,
code and everything. I
I
put
mean,
the phone away.
I never really see anyone using it except like my
Nope.
friends because they know about it. I mean, Disney does publicize it. They put it on the maps. They put it there's like pop-ups, notifications inside the app telling you to download the Disney Play app and try this. But it's one of those things where it's like they have it up and they have it running, and maybe it doesn't cost that much to keep it going. So they just leave it running, and then people, some people are playing it. I don't know. I never see like your average guest who's not a huge Walt Disney World fan downloading the app and playing that.
Yeah,
Right.
I'd agree too, because that really cute surprise in our Peter Pan ride,
Mhm.
nobody's doing it. Nobody's doing it. And so sometimes I'll do it and then people get excited. But
If I was Disney and I had I would combine the Play app and whichever park that you're at. So I would combine like add the Play functionality to the Walt Disney World app, so it's like a tab inside the app. Because I think psychologically it's very hard, especially when you're at Disney and you're trying to keep up with all your plans and lightning lanes and dining reservations and tickets
And
and
not drain
everything
your
else.
phone battery.
It's hard to leave that app where you're
yes,
doing everything for
Yeah.
your whole day to go to another app while you're sitting. You don't want to juggle two apps. You want to just
no, it's very
that's
true. Yeah.
so
Yeah. I think
why
they overestimated the interest.
I don't think. I mean, when it first came out, it was very popular, but I think
Yeah,
that. I mean,
it
and
waned.
there's things inside Epcot. I believe this stuff still works for the Ducktales game. Inside the Disney Play app, so you can actually, there's interactive things around World Showcase that you can activate inside the app. So
Mhm.
there is cool stuff inside there. I just think that again, it's one of those things where they just need to combine and have a tab with the Play app in it so people can go in there. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they can't do that. Maybe there's a reason why they can't do that. I don't know what that reason is, but it would be nice if they were all in the same app because I would honestly use it a lot more because, I mean, every time I'm in the parks, I go inside the Walt Disney World app, or when I was at Disneyland, I went in the Disneyland app because there's so many things in there, whether it's getting a ride photo, checking a wait time, or you know, making a dinner reservation. It all goes through the app. So
Yeah.
I mean, might as well add that in there as functionality too. But there
I
are
don't
a
know if
lot of attractions that do that here. Go ahead.
no, I'm saying I don't know if it's me or if the Kim Possible, maybe it was because they handed you the communicator.
Mm-hmm.
Seem to be a lot more people doing that one than anybody doing DuckTales now.
That's true.
I've done the DuckTales. It's really awesome.
Mhm.
It's fun watching things go off.
Mhm.
I never see anything being set off, even when I'm just walking
Yeah.
through the Mexican Pavilion.
Yeah, of course.
None of those things happen. And I love being
Yeah.
the one to set them off, and people go, "What the heck was that?" And then they sit there waiting for
It's
it to
true.
happen again. It's not going to happen again unless I push this button, guys. So move
Yeah,
away.
it's true. Yeah, because they don't make a big deal out of that. It used to be like as soon as you walk into or walking towards World Showcase, in the middle walkway there from Spaceship Earth or the Communicore area to well, what is it now? World Celebration Place to World Showcase now. Um, they had those people standing there with the giant flags that said Kim Possible. game, and they were handing out the phones. So it was a lot more. They were like, had people out there telling people, "Here, take a phone, go do this." So
Hmm.
they don't really have that anymore. They don't have the same promotion that they
Yeah.
did. I think that's why people don't use the play. And again, I also really heavily think that it's because people do not want to juggle another app
Yep.
while they're doing that. So
Well, more thing. Before when you mentioned, and again, not a roller coaster guy, but when we were ready to bash the Space Mountain queue, because they did
Mhm.
remove the games, which I mean nobody played them
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Oh no,
But
they played them. They played them for a while there. Trust me.
for a while,
I
that's what I'm
spent
saying. But at the end, they're like, all right, I think they check the usage and go,
yeah.
okay, we're maintaining this for nobody.
That
But
was as
same.
amazing as that was. As
Hmm.
amazing as that was, and if you don't remember, they used to have screens inside Space Mountain, and they had little touch pads where you would play like games on the screen while you're in the queue. But amazing as that was, the downfall to that was it would always, always, always hold up the line
Yep.
because you got to a certain point and people were playing the games and not moving as the line moved, and there'd be a huge gap, and the game would last 2 minutes, and they'd let 2 minutes of line go forward, and you're standing there like, come on, let's go. Especially when the queue was empty. I remember times just walking past people as they were
You
playing the
have to.
games. I'm
Sure.
not gonna wait.
But yeah, for me, even though I didn't go on there to ride the ride, and that's part of why I brought up, music for a future show. I
Yeah.
love the Space Mountain music in the queue.
Yes.
So I'll either do it last thing at night when there's no wait, or during the
Hmm.
the holiday party, the Christmas party,
Hmm.
when there's no line. I will
Yeah.
just go in and I will slowly just walk the whole queue, hear the Star Tunnel, hear "Promising
Hmm.
Tomorrow," whatever that song is called. And then when
Yes.
I get to the ride and they want to throw me on, I can just take the little back swinging gate and find myself at the exit. But I love just walking through there, taking in the
Mhm.
ambiance.
I completely agree because you really do feel like you're in outer space. The only other place I think on property where you really feel like you're in outer space would be Space 220, which
Hmm.
has an amazing buildup um, for a restaurant. I mean, probably the one of the most immersive restaurants on property, hands down. Between the and I guess we could call this the queue because this is how you get into the restaurant, but going through the elevator and having the elevator take you up to the restaurant in space is an experience. I've only done it once, just because it's very hard to get a reservation there. Also, for even for a Disney restaurant, it's one of the higher end Disney restaurants, and I just personally I don't. I mean, I think it's more about the views and the food because the food is great, but it's not something I would go to all the time. I'd have to be
Right.
with someone who was visiting to want to go there, and they say, "Oh, I want to try this," and I'd be like, "Okay," because I did the one time that I did do it because I had gone years without doing it. I waited an hour and a half for a bar table, and I waited at the restaurant. There was no list. There was none of that. I literally walked to the entrance and had to wait there for an hour and a half in that one spot to get a table
Hmm.
at Space 220, and it was fun, and I'm glad that I did it. Um, but it's not something that I would go out of my way for again. But the queue, the theming, very much reminiscent of Horizons, which used to be in that area, with like the rotating plants. What was the one that was what was the city that was in space? Was it Alpha Centauri or Bravo Centauri?
I
I
think it
don't
was
remember off
Alphas.
the top of the
It's
head. Um,
it'll come to me later.
yeah, I have to think. But that's what it reminded me of. And of course they have nods to that inside the queue for mission space. Brava Centauri was the space colony.
Bravo Centauri, Mesa Verde, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Bravo
Mesa
Centauri
Verde
was
was
the
the desert. Brava Centauri, and then I forget what the underwater one was.
Sea Castle.
Sea Castle, that's right. Sea Castle, yes.
Oh wait, it was Nova Cité, right?
I'm not sure on
That was
that
the
one.
urban city. Yeah, I'm looking them up now.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Nova Cité, Cite.
Yeah, you're right. So Mesa
Brava
Verde,
Centauri was
Sea
located in
Castle, Brava
space.
Centauri. No, those were the three for the final scene. Was Mesa Verde, Sea Castle, and Brava Centauri. But yeah, but you do get vibes of that inside the Mission Space Q. There's even a Horizon logo on the floating city, floating space colony. When you look, as you go into the attraction, if you look to the right, where you see the spinning space colony or space, what would you call? I don't even know. Space station, I guess you call
Mhm.
it. There is a spinning Horizons logo right in the middle of the attraction, or right in the middle of that space station there. So a little throwback to the old attraction because Horizons was one of the greatest attractions ever. So um, yeah, but yeah, that I mean, there's so many great interactive cues. It's hard to narrow down. I mean, I think um, this generation, when I grew up, and I think uh, I can't speak for all of us, but when I grew up, the cues were just get in line, and there was mild theming, and then that was it. And then at some point, I want to say maybe late 2000s, um, early 2000s, in the 2000s there, they started adding the interactive elements. My first recollection is the Winnie the Pooh queue over here, which had that giant honey wall where you could like
Mhm.
put your hands on there and smudge the honey and all that stuff, which needed to be cleaned constantly because kids would just spend hours doing that and touching that, which is still there to this date, actually. And then, of course, they added the little play area in the queue. So that's what I remember as my first interactive queue. I don't know what you remember, Luella, being out at Disneyland as your first uh, foray into interactive queues in the parks.
Like I mentioned, just Indiana Jones, but that was out of necessity because that there was such a long journey to get to the attraction. So they had to do that queue and make it interactive. But there's just not a lot of space at the parks over here. They just cannot make
Yeah.
them long. And it's an old park, 1955, so there's a bunch of just switchbacks. And so truly they're even though they had Indiana Jones back, almost like 30 something years ago, the ability to do that to the and change the other rides, just no space.
Yeah.
So um it wasn't until they're able to build something, for example, like that Runaway Railway. And so any of the newer attractions, probably more at DCA, you can see a little
Yeah.
bit more interactive, but nothing like at Walt Disney World. And plus you also have the luxury of all the inside, because it's so hot there, so a lot of your lines are
Sure.
inside, which is nice, where ours is outside in
That is
switchback. So but
one of the things that I will always remember from my first trip to Disneyland is it rained one day that I was there, and the amount of attractions that had to close because of the rain. I was like, this never happens in Florida. We're more prepared for that, but I get it. Like everything, this was also my first time in California too, so I was also blown away by the amount of restaurants that you have that are more outdoor seating than indoor seating. So I the whole thing, being a Floridian my whole life and seeing that is a complete mystery to me because I'm used to it raining every day. So not
oh my God, we don't know how to behave in the rain. It doesn't rain here. So
you said that. I didn't say that,
so
but yeah,
it's just
I totally agree.
yeah.
But but yeah, so yeah, that I think that so I'm trying to think here now. Of course, we have amazing queues all over the parks. Epcot, of course, Guardians, an amazing queue. When it flips, when you go through like the teleportation and you flip to the other world, and the glass just changes. The same with they do a similar effect on Tron, which I rode over this weekend. The Tron Ares um, layover, or is um, I mean that's it's just like a lot of this stuff is magic. Like I think we I think a lot of times we overlook the cues because we're so focused on the ride, and we miss out on so much because that Tron cue is just, I mean, wow. I mean, like I still remember the first time I I went through that queue, and I was like, I'm in the grid. This is the grid. I'm here. Like this is it. Like, and having seen the original Tron tons of times, and loving all the new Tron stuff. Being one of my favorite Disney movies. Um, Being in the grid was, and of course, someone who's really into tech and things like that. That whole storyline attracts me. So being in the grid, or being inside a computer, being a program, being a user, all those things is just that. It just it still blows my mind. It's still even though the Tron ride does go outside and then back into the building. It's that ride still blows my mind. I mean, the queue, everything about that. Same with Guardians too. Guardians over here, Cosmic Rewind blows my mind too. That between the queue and everything else, and like I said, I think a lot of people are so focused on the rides that we often forget how amazing these queues are, especially on this coast. We're more focused on getting to that attraction, and we miss out on so much. Did you guys, Michael? Did you have any others that you like out here? I'm trying to think of anything that I really enjoy in Animal Kingdom.
I've only gone through once, but how about Flight of Passage? I mean, or is it just that one stupid animatronic thing in the glass coffin there? You know,
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a few. I mean, yeah. Of course, Flight of Passage is a good one. That is a nice one there. I will say, as far as queues go, I do like the queue for Dinosaur. Unfortunately, we're losing Dinosaur soon. It's got a nice sort of natural history vibe, or natural history museum vibe. And you learn about the asteroid and the extinction of the dinosaurs and things like that while you're in the queue. So that's always very fun there. But you're right. There's really not that much. I will say, um, Everest has an interesting queue. I wouldn't call it interactive, but I
no.
would call it beautiful. Especially trying being in that part of the you know putting them in that place of the world there, and really fitting into that theme with all the like the oh, I can't even, like the spiritual stuff, and then of course the museum talking about the Yeti and everything else inside there, and having artifacts from the Yeti, and things, and they had the footprints for the Yeti and all that stuff. So seeing that stuff is fun too. But I necessarily wouldn't call it interactive. But it is still really cool to have those little bits of memorabilia inside the parks. And keep in mind, I mean, this is most of that stuff is not made up stuff. That's real things that Disney has collected and put inside the queue. And I think that is a huge thing that Disney does well. And I've always said this. What someone told me once, one of my friends, what do they call it, the long shot, the medium shot, and the short shot, and in terms of the detail. And Disney is really good at the short stuff, the stuff that's right in front of you, that is like takes it to the next level, like just stuff that is unnecessarily. You don't need it. It's totally unnecessary, but it's there. Like having that queue inside Everest with that sort of shrine to the Yeti and all that Yeti stuff inside that queue. That's not necessarily needed, but it's there. Like they took that next step and took that one step further and just made it out of this world. So
Well,
I
if you
I
don't do that, there's nothing to that queue. So they had to do something to have you,
of
look at
course.
something while you're standing there. Otherwise, it's Animal Kingdom's safari all over again.
Yeah,
You
and
don't
I
put
and
up
I
those
totally
video screens up top. You are doomed. And I don't think anybody even watches those video screens anymore. They're just
no. I
standing
mean,
for
and it
hours
was,
trying to get on the ride.
but again, there are other parks in the area that
Hmm.
really don't do anything in their queues
Yep.
and don't have anything close to that. And that's what I'm saying. It's yes, they have to do it, but Disney does it in a right way where it it feels over the top. At least to me, it feels over the top. Like they went further than they needed to go. Um, you know, I mean, there are other parks that do it. Don't get me wrong. There are other queues inside Orlando that look amazing. I will say, not to plug them, but uh, uh, the Harry Potter queues. I mean, I
Harry
recently went
Potter
on
queues are
Forbidden
awesome.
Journey,
Yep.
and seeing um, the talking portraits on the wall, the paintings on the wall, is always like such an incredible thing to see. Like, I mean, the tech behind it seems so simple, but it's just the way it's executed and the way it's done and the amount that there are is just so good. So there are but again, like and others I think are catching other parks are catching up to Disney, but I still think Disney when it comes to queues, by far I think Disney is easily the best. But I think Universal is on their tail. Don't get me wrong, Epic Universe um, changed the game a lot. I dollars for dollars, I think people will say that there are some cues in Epic, especially um, Ministry of Magic, that are better than some of the things that Disney has done. That in my mind, I still think Disney has the best cues when it comes to their attractions. I just think
I
that's
mean,
a
even
winner.
something as simple and basic as like the Spider-Man ride, where you're
Hmm.
going through and it feels old and like an old dated office, but it's supposed to be because of where it's set, and
Yeah,
it's not new and flashy. It's just this lived-in office environment. Your
yeah,
phones are ringing, and you've got the office equipment, and you're going past cubicles, and hearing the news stories on the TV. Not interactive, and to me, a queue doesn't need to be interactive to be enjoyable. If it's a queue I
yeah.
would walk through and skip the ride for, then it was an enjoyable. Like I would never
And
stand on line for It's a Small World just for the hell of it.
and the detail and the
I don't even
detail
want
you
to
in
ride the
that
ride, much less just stand on that queue for no reason.
and the detail in that Spider-Man queue is actually pretty good because you don't just have cubicles and like an office space. You have like names. You have like the sales department, like ad
Right.
sales. You
Yep.
have like reporters. Like there's like tags for each of their desks. They've decorated their desks. Like there is some work that went into those queues that
Yep.
was so it's not just like they threw an office scene in there. They and then of course there's little Easter eggs inside all of these cues, and I encourage you, as much, I mean, of course, always look out for the hidden Mickeys, always hunt for the hidden Mickeys. Those are always fun to do, always fun to find those all over the parks, but those little bits and pieces inside the cues that make them extraordinary, and really go above and beyond and add to the story. And those Easter eggs, that tie those, like the Horizons one that ties that to the old. It's a throwback to the older attraction. Um, uh, they did the same thing now with Test Track, where they say the line, "It's always fun to be free," which is a throwback to the original World of Motion ride, where the song for that attraction was called "It's Fun to Be Free." So there's little bits and pieces, and I think that um, you know as much as things change inside the parks, as much as you know, what was it Walt said that the parks will always be changing. They're not a museum. You know, and that, and as much as that changes, as much as us as fans don't necessarily you know, like our favorite attractions going away, especially now with the outcry for the riverboat at Magic Kingdom. Um, they you know, they do a great job of putting in throwbacks and little hidden history parts to these attractions that throw back to other attractions that were there in the past. So kudos to Disney for doing that and adding those little sneaky touches in there. And you know, that comes from that comes from a place. The reason why they're able to do that is because the people that are designing these attractions are just as much fans of the attractions as we are. And you know, they, you know, so that's pretty amazing, and it shows in what they do. It shows in what they do.
And before we wrap up, because it is coming up
Yes.
on the hour, um, One Man's Dream, is that an
Yeah.
attraction that is a queue?
I would consider it more of a museum. I guess it does kind of build up to the movie itself,
Which I
but I
never
would
watched.
consider it more of a museum. But I mean, again, something you definitely have to check out, especially now with them adding the Walt animatronic to Carousel Progress.
Hmm.
Um, you know, it's nice to go in there and kind of get that history on Walt and learn about Walt Disney. And you know, if you have your family there and you have younger kids that don't really know about Walt, it's nice to have that opportunity to, you know, see and hear him on the screen and hear about his life and everything else, which is
Sure.
always a plus.
Well, great talk today. This was fun.
Yeah. I definitely, this is I think this is one of those topics that people don't really necessarily discuss, because it's one of those things that's often overlooked because we're so, again, we're so focused on getting to the ride that we're not, you know, living in the moment, I should say. But take the time to, you know, pick your head up out of your phone and look at your surroundings. And I guarantee you, especially at Disney, even at the other parks too in Orlando, you will not be disappointed. There is so much to see. So
Yeah.
definitely take the time to check that out. But I think that's gonna do it for this week's show, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you guys again. We love doing this every week with you guys here, and thank you to everyone who's watching live, joining us. You know, is there with us every week. We appreciate you joining our feed here and joining us every week. But Michael, did you have anything else to add before I wrap this up?
No, no, this was great. We got to cover most of the parks. I think we got all four parks in, plus Disneyland.
Yeah.
So, and
Plus
again,
the
we always want to hear what you guys have to say. I've been trying to
yeah.
keep up with the chat on YouTube, but send an email, leave us a message. You know, we
Yeah.
want to, we love the interaction. We love hearing from you guys. If not live, just come back because we follow all week long, especially
Yep.
after we post this. If you're listening online, next week, let's give out the email address unless you have it, Andy. I don't know if it's mouseminds at Gmail.
Mouseminds@gmail.com.
Perfect. Want to hear from you guys. This is awesome. So let us know
Yeah.
what's your favorite cues. What cues are in need of a refresh? What cues do you
Yep.
hate? Would you prefer just to bypass and just go right to the ride? So
Yep.
love the interaction. So thank you all for listening.
Yeah, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Disney and Beyond, so you can see this live, number one. And number two, so you can comment on the live feed itself. And we can see those comments on our show here. And we appreciate that because it gives us, you know, definitely talking points with you guys. But we definitely, you know, leave those comments there. Let us know what you're thinking. What is your favorites? Maybe there's something that we completely overlooked that is the greatest queue of all time. I don't think we've missed anything, but you know, I could be wrong. But yeah, leave those comments. Let us know what you think. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Disney and Beyond on YouTube. And then, of course, catch us every week on Twitch as well. Mouse Minds on Twitch. And then, of course, me and Michael both stream on, we all stream on Facebook here. So you can check that out, Mouse Minds on Facebook as well. But that's going to do it for this week's show. As I always say to you guys, if you can dream it, you can do it. So make that happen this week. I hope you guys have an amazing week. And we will catch you guys next week. Every Tuesday, 8:30 on your favorite YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. Just search up Mouse Minds on Facebook and Twitch, and then of course Disney and Beyond on YouTube. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this week. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
And we
Till
will
next
see you guys next week.